in 2006, in February, we hired our first non-owner employee, which was an assembly tech, part-time, just stuff things, wire boards, things like that. In 2006, we also hired our second employee, which was a office manager, receptionist, shipping. Karen's a wonderful, wonderful girl. Part of working in a startup is you have to wear a lot of hats. You can't say, well, this is my job. I answer the phones. Okay. And in the 99% of the time when somebody's not calling, I pack products. And when people aren't packing, when there aren't products to pack, I do our website. And doing a startup, you don't really have a job description. You just have a, well, what needs to be done today? It's one of the advantages of being a startup is you get real broad. The disadvantage of running a startup is you don't get very deep. So you have to learn to know a lot of things, and you have to be able to jump. You have to be able to jump really fast. Okay, well, that just caught fire, so I'm going to have to stop doing this. Go to Google. How do I put out a fire? Go to Home Depot. I need a fire extinguisher. Go over to the fire and say, you are much bigger now. Go over to the fire department and say, I have a problem. Which, you know, it's a fallacious example, but that's the sort of thing you have to do, not necessarily with fires, but all the time in a startup is, okay, what's going wrong? How do I fix it? I probably don't know how to fix it because I may not have encountered it before. So you have to be constantly on your feet, and you have to be constantly learning. And you have to be willing to wear any hat from janitor to machinist to throw on a suit and give a presentation to the Cleveland Cavaliers for some customer, which I did a couple of months ago. So we were continuing to grow. 2006, we were growing. And at some point in 2000, I really stopped being an engineer, and I started being a manager, because when you're just working for yourself, you know what's going on, you know what you need to do. The thing with employees, and employees are wonderful, and I love them, and they absolutely make your hair turn white, is you have to kind of think for them or ahead of them, or instead of saying, well, I'm me, I'm designing this thing, you say, well, I'm me, I'm designing this thing, I'm Tom, putting together this, I'm Karen, I'm doing this, I'm Alex, I'm doing this. You know, the guy in charge, one of the difficult things about startupping is you have to run from doing everything to still doing everything through other people. You have to be kind of living vicariously in a number of places, because the hard thing about having employees is if the employee doesn't have something to do, what they're going to do is, hey, 8 on the 9, and that's not really their fault. If you can't manage, you should not design a fast growth startup, because at some point you're going to have to. It's not their fault if they're playing solitaire, because you didn't give them anything to do and you still have to pay them. So if you're starting up, if you're a startup, if you're to the point where you have employees, which if you're not really a startup, you're more of a small business, because the whole point of a startup is to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, and then have a private jet and a mansion and hookers and blow and whatever's driving you. So you have to manage. And in 2006, what we also started really pushing up against was burnout, which is not something I've actually fixed yet, but you know, you're working 14-hour days. You're making, at that point I was making what, like 25 grand a year?
When you figure that one out.
How to fix the burnout? Yeah, it's something which you need, if you're thinking of getting into a startup, you need to know that you're not going, it doesn't get easier. It doesn't get easier if you say, well, I've got $1 million a year in sales. Well, great, now I've got $1 million a year in expenses that I have to make happen. It doesn't, I don't think there's a point where it gets easier, and it really just kind of seems to get more and more and more difficult the larger and larger and larger you grow. So you have to be able to deal with that. You have to have coping mechanisms, because otherwise that's an easy way to die, and it's something we're fighting against real hard right now. I took up skydiving. Why? It's kind of relaxing. So 2007, now what we're pushing up against, what we're worried about, our problem is right now we're capacity constrained. The machines we bought in 2005, aren't really big enough. Our facility isn't big enough. We don't really have, I don't know that we can afford a 2-week downtime while we say, go get new machines and move. But at some point, you come to a spot where you say, well, now what? Right now, we are finally, our business plan we wrote for 1 year. 1 year of business plan. We're off our business plan now. We're past our business plan now. At this point, we're kind of at a transitional phase. We need to either get a hell of a lot bigger or sell, or those are pretty much our options. Get bigger, sell, or die. Those are always your options in a startup, but you get to a certain point, at some point, when those are your only options. You can't just continue on, and because the whole game is fast growth, and when you bump up against something, what do? And that's kind of where I don't know. I don't know exactly, because we haven't done that yet. At this point, I'm kind of like, well, this is what I did. Where am I going? Bigger, I think. We're kind of in talks with one of our competitors. He's making, I should buy you motions. Would I sell? Maybe. Depends on what he gives us money for. Well, if his offer's right. Right. Yeah, if he backs a truckload of money up, we say, hey, yeah, I'll go live in Kansas. Grand. If he says, here, 200 grand for your business, I'd say, well, nice talking to you. But you have to be open to your options, but you have to be able to say, I'm at a point where this is a transitional point. I need to make a decision here. Honestly, I wish we had made a 3-year business plan, which would have taken 9 years, back when we had the time and the relaxation and the freedom to just sit there and be like, okay, what would be other clever products? The farther out you plan, the less bearing on reality it gets, but it would be nice. It would have been nice, in hindsight, to write a longer plan. I'm going to talk about a couple of other things in startupping. If you're married, I don't know how many people here are married, and you're thinking of doing a startup, in your business plan, put your divorce. I'm not saying you're going to get divorced. I am saying if you say, well, I'm going to live off my wife's income while I do this, you're fucked. Because startupping, it's hard enough, and it's hard to relate to. So if you aren't prepared to lose that, you probably shouldn't do it, because you will change in the course of running your startup. I wasn't married. I was actually engaged to a lovely girl. And for 2 years, she kind of stuck through the whole startup thing, and now I'm single. It happens. You need to be able to risk that. I don't know how many people that's speaking to, but there are a lot of divorced business owners. And it's not necessarily because you were workaholic, because you don't have a choice. It's not necessarily because you're a person. It's just you have to be able to realize that if I'm starting a business, I'm starting this business, and I don't know who's going to be around me when the business succeeds, because it gets kind of weird. My last thing is, you're talking to me, you're listening to me, you're arguing with me, which is fantastic, thank you. Are we rich yet? And I could say, well, my accountant says on paper, but not really yet. I'm making almost an engineer's salary now. We're making payroll. We do payroll for 5. I could probably say, yeah, this is a win. But if you're running a startup to satisfy your ego, that's a good way to go. If you're running a startup because it's true. If you don't have an oversized ego, you're not going to say, well, I can be better than dude in a suit and. Yeah, running a startup for an ego is a grand thing. Running a startup for, just this is something I need to do, that's a perfectly valid thing. If you're saying, well, I'm going to do this because I want to be Scrooge McDucking through gold coins, surrounded by scantily clad women, doing lines of blow. Yeah, it's a great dream, but it's a bad way to go, because in a couple of years you'll say, well, coins, where's the blow, where are the women, where's my mansion? Well, it would be much easier to do that if you simply worked a job, got off at 5 in the afternoon. I work about 12-hour days, for whatever that's worth. Yeah. Yeah, okay, fine. Girls Gone Wild would have been a great startup opportunity. What can you do better than anyone else? Convince girls to take their shirt off. If that's your talent, go for it. But Don't do it necessarily just for the money. Do it if you're looking to do it, because the money probably won't be there. What?
Right, do it for the girls.
Do it for the girls picking up their shirt. Do it for pride. Do it for sure. Do it for America. But the finances may come. But if you're doing this simply because I want to be super rich, you're going to be super poor before you ever get super rich, and you may never get super rich. So there are lots and lots of reasons to run startups. There are lots of reasons to start startups. One of the best reasons to start startups is I personally just love to create. And the greatest thing about a startup is nobody can say, well, that's not economically viable except me. And if it's not economically viable, I'm going to find that out real fast. I was like, well, I got a product nobody buys, but damn, it was clever. Not that clever. That is the greatest thing about running a business, about running a startup, is there's no illusion of, well, I should be doing better. There's no I should. There's only I is, because I is me. I is it. I is the company. I is not an English major, by the way. I is an engineer. So that's pretty much all I've got for startups. If anybody wants to talk or question or discuss.
Have you thought about doing funded research? Like, you're currently successful, right?
Uh-huh.
You're making payroll.
Yeah.
You're paying your bills.
Yeah.
That's
We're growing
success.
about
Right, you're growing.
250%.
So have you
a
thought
year.
about maybe taking you're currently reinvesting all of your current
Yeah.
profits into growth. Have you thought about taking a percentage of that and doing research for future growth, building a new business plan or a better product line, more
Well,
products?
not as a discrete thing, because honestly, this is actually an interesting.
I mean, you don't have
point.
to shut your research.
No, I
There's-
understand
And
that.
funded research is always better than non-funded research.
Funded research is better. We definitely have
I
one
love
of the
customers paying me to
yeah
make
one
things
of
better
the
for
great
them.
perks of running a startup is toy money. The one thing I have is toy money. Because I kind of took my hobbies and turned them into my business, which unfortunately means that I had to pick up new hobbies. As kind of a tangent, don't necessarily take your hobbies and turn them into your business, because it doesn't matter how much you love it. It doesn't matter what your hobbies are. As soon as they become work, they're not going to be fun. It doesn't matter if you're a model railroader or an infomaniac. When you go pro, it's going to stop being fun.
Hallelujah. I've done that twice. It's a huge mistake.
Yeah, I know.
You will learn, if you don't learn the lesson the first time, you will learn it the second time. And if you don't learn it the third time, you're broke.
Yeah. So, yeah.
From an engineer standpoint, how do you determine when to ditch a project?
When to ditch a project? It's hard, actually, because if you said, this is my project, this is my baby, you become emotionally invested in it. But it usually becomes fairly apparent where this project is going nowhere. We have 26, 27 products right now. We also have another dozen that are either backburnered or ditched, or, usually you either can't afford to continue research, the research isn't going anywhere, or it's just not panning out. One of the things we do is we have a lot of products that we sell some of instead of one major product. So it's easier for us to kind of have vanity products because they're not make or break. I'm not sure I have a good answer for when do you ditch, except that if you've been doing it for a while, it'll become pretty apparent that, maybe this is clever, maybe this is cute, maybe this is intellectually gratifying, but it's just not gonna turn a profit for me. But if you want to follow a project to the ground, it's your business, it's your prerogative. But usually it's pretty apparent when this isn't going to work, this isn't hacking it, this isn't going to do it. But I don't have if you've invested X amount of dollars, I don't have a formula for that as such. But if your gut says ditch, ditch. You kind of have to get good gut feelings about what's going to work and what's not pretty quick. Yeah. Make the mic girl work.
Which one of them was it?
Back corner.
So the title of the talk seemed to be like, what are you doing in Ohio for? But from everything I've heard, it didn't seem to match your venture capital guys or tech